Hey there, guys. This is Cole. Welcome back to another movie review. I know it's been a little bit since I've done one of these, but just been busy. But today's movie I'm going to be reviewing is a movie that I just watched for the first time. And today's movie review is Ex Machina, released in 2015, directed by Alex Garland as his directorial debut. So, what is the plot of this movie? Well, the plot of this movie is as follows. A coder at a tech company wins a week-long retreat at the compound of his company's CEO, where he is tasked with testing a new artificial intelligence. And that's basically the premise to this movie. And now this movie was directed by Alex Garland. And before he directed this movie, he was only known as like a writer on movies. For those of you guys who are not familiar with in terms of what movies he was a writer on, he wrote the screenplay to the 2002 critically acclaimed horror movie 28 Days Later, which I do rather like. He was also the writer on the 2012 movie Dread with Carl Urban, which I do rather like that movie. So I'm like, okay, but this is like the first movie that he's actually, this was the first movie where he actually took over the director's chair, his directorial debut. And now, in terms of my experience with Alex Garland, before this, I had only seen Annihilation from 2018 with Natalie Portman, which it has been a while since I've watched it, but I do remember rather liking that movie. But he also most recently directed the 2024 movie Civil War with Kirsten Dunst, which I actually saw that movie in the theaters with my dad, and me and my dad both liked it. So I figured that, everyone was saying this was Alex Garland's best movie, so I figured, hey, might as well check it out. And I gotta say, I did like this movie. Now, I don't know whether this movie or Civil War is my favorite Alex Garland movie. I'm not sure because it has been a while since I've watched Civil War, so I would have to rewatch it to see if I prefer that over this. But I thought that this was a rather well done movie. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So our movie starts off with our main character of the movie, Caleb, who is played by Domhnall Gleeson, who's a bit of a lesser known actor I'm not too familiar with, but I thought he gave a good performance in the movie. And basically, like I said, he basically wins a week-long retreat at the compound of his company's CEO, which and the guy in chart and the CEO founder is a guy by the name of Nathan, who is actually played by Oscar Isaac, who I do rather like Oscar Isaac as an actor. As a fan of the original Star Wars trilogy, I'm not a fan of the sequel trilogy, but honestly, Oscar Isaac was not the problem with those movies. I thought with those movies, he did the best with the material he was given, but he was also most recently in the 2025 Frankenstein movie, exclusively on Netflix, directed by Guillermo del Toro, where in that movie he played Victor Frankenstein, and I thought he did a fantastic job in that movie, and he does do a rather good job in this movie. But basically, Caleb meets the CEO, Nathan, and like I said, he's basically tasked to do testing on an artificial intelligence robot, a female AI robot called Ava. And Ava is played by Alicia Vikander, who, again, I'm not too familiar with as an actress, but I thought the actress playing her did a good job. And this is not a fast-paced movie. This is a movie done by A24, who, it's an independent film company, and A24, they're mostly known for horror movies, but they've also done some other movies too. Like, of course, they did this movie. They also did the 2019 drama movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, which I loved that movie. I personally think it's their best movie. They also did Heretic from 2024 with Hugh Grant, which I thought was a pretty good horror movie. If I remember correctly, I think they did the movie Room with Brie Larson. Don't quote me on that, which, even though I'm not a fan of Brie Larson as an actress, I thought to me, the movie Room from 2015, that is the only movie that she was actually good in my opinion. So yeah, A24 for me, they have made some dumpster fires, but they're a bit of a hit or miss company, but when they are really good, they are really good. And I thought that this was one of their best movies. Like I said, throughout the course of the movie, Caleb and Nathan, they're getting along with each other. But basically, this movie, there are 6 interview sessions that our main character of the movie, Caleb, has, where he basically has a session interviewing the robot Ava, and the first interview goes smoothly. The second interview takes a bit of a dark turn, where basically the security systems on the camera basically go down, and so where Nathan basically cannot see what's going on, and Ava basically looks at Caleb and says, "Do not trust Nathan. Everything he says is a lie," and stuff like that. And and even later that night, there's a part where Caleb and Nathan are at the dinner table, and and Caleb, and Nathan basically asks Caleb, when the power, when the security system go out, did Ava say anything to you in particular? And then he was like, no. And he was like, nothing at all. And then Caleb's like, no. And then they go about with their dinner, and Caleb has a robot. Well, Caleb has a person. Caleb has a person working with him. I forget her name, but she's like a female, and she doesn't speak any English at all, or so we think. But that gets to a certain part later on in the movie, which we'll discuss. And I should say this, for those of you guys who have not seen this movie, there will be spoilers. So if you do not want spoilers, click off the review and go watch the movie, then come back and watch this review. Or if you don't care about spoilers, then whatever. But basically, Caleb starts to notice that some stuff is, basically the robot Ava, she's a very smart robot. I will definitely say that. And there's a big twist later on in this movie where we basically find out that, yeah, Ava is not the only AI robot that Dr. Nathan had the whole time. Like there were other robots in his closets, so to speak, and the one who, we're told basically cannot speak a single word of English, we find out that she's a robot too, which I thought, okay, that was actually a rather cool twist. And then, basically Ava, talks to, basically when the camera goes out, Ava talks to Caleb, and Caleb says that he basically has a plan to get them out of there, that he's going to get Nathan drunk. That way, him and Ava can steal a security card and escape at night. And, and and then basically, there's a part later on in the movie where Nathan basically shows him the recording footage when basically, because everyone thought that, well, the power to the camera went out, even though it really didn't. And basically, he feels embarrassed knowing that Nathan recorded their conversation about the escape plan, and then Nathan tells him the plan, and then no, Caleb tells Nathan the plan, and then Nathan says that actually could have worked, and then Caleb says, "We'll see about that. What do you mean?" And then he basically tells him that I got you drunk and I did it all yesterday. I already had this planned out. And then, of course, there's the scene where the robot, Ava, basically she attacks Oscar Isaac, and so does the other robot, basically stabbing him. And basically, at the end of the movie, the robot is basically able to basically manipulates Caleb into thinking that they're going to escape together, but nope, she locks him in a room, and a week after the helicopter dropped Caleb off, it comes back and with a different helicopter pilot, and he picks up the AI robot because at this point, the AI robot found the perfect fake skin patch and perfectly disguised herself as like a normal looking human. And that's how the movie ends. So yeah, at the end of the day, I thought that this was a pretty good science fiction thriller movie. Now, okay, I'm gonna say now, if I have any negatives with the movie, the ending was like, look, I knew the movie was gonna end the way it did, but I thought the ending, I don't know, I just felt like the ending was a little too abrupt. But other than that, I thought that this was a rather well done sci-fi thriller movie. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Ex Machina a 9 out of 10. So yeah. Anyways, guys, that was my review. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye now.